the fact is that Bitcoin is the first time in history that you have one asset that is the dominant, the apex predator of all of those three functions of money at the same time, with the ability to be collateral. Now, all of a sudden, that completely redefines the space as far as how much wealth can be absorbed by Bitcoin. And this is where what I try to do is put a valuation framework around Bitcoin to highlight how absurd it's going to get very quickly. And the thinking and the rationale on, say, a $7 billion Bitcoin is quite simply, once people understand what this is and we have the bulk of it tied up in collateral and we don't have the need to sell it because we've got a functioning credit market on top of Bitcoin, Bitcoin will facilitate the entire global trade because it's the best form of money ever invented. If you divide 6.3 trillion by whatever's minted on the day, which is going to have to facilitate whatever the daily global trade is, then we get to a ridiculous number of $7 billion. That gives us a $7 billion Bitcoin.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an awesome day. Now, while Bitcoin might be busy boring everybody right now as it goes sideways and consolidates and meme coins are flying through the roof, distracting everybody, there is something that we need to talk about. Now, of course, having a look at the Bitcoin price chart, we have been consolidating, somewhere around the $70,000 area. We dip a little below it. We dip a little above it. Could we go a little bit more sideways? Sure. If we extend this area over here, maybe Bitcoin has another drop down to the 65K area. It's possible. We could just break out at this particular moment, but that's really not what I wanted to go into today, because as Bitcoin seems like nothing really is happening, there's actually something crazy happening, and this is something we have never, ever seen for Bitcoin. And I'm not talking about the ETFs. I'm not talking about new all-time high before the halving. I'm talking about what the Bitcoin whales just did and what they are doing right now. On top of that, we have a bit of a double whammy because there's something that Bitcoin has only ever done one time ever in its history. And depending on when you're watching, in about the next 24 hours, that's probably about to happen again. And the last time this happened for Bitcoin, it pumped $2,000 in 7 months. Excuse me, 2,000%. I'm sorry, 2,000% in 7 months. Now, that seems astronomical. Let's be realistic. If Bitcoin was to actually pump 2,000% in the next 7 months, that means that by the end of this year, you would have a $1.5 million Bitcoin. Now, that sounds ridiculous on the surface, right? I mean, I'm sure once we get to 100,000, you're going to see a lot of profit taking, right? A nice round number. Anything above that, maybe we'll start to see the whales, sort of scaling out. However, is it actually possible? That's what I want to kind of dive into today, because again, Bitcoin loves to surprise both the bulls and the bears, but definitely the bears in the long term. And Bitcoin does these consolidations, and then in the blink of an eye, the same way we went from 35 to 70, you can literally go from 70 to 140K. And 3 out of the last 4 times that we broke and held above the all-time high, we did it in 3 weeks. So again, I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the altcoins, but I do have to talk about Bitcoin today. And also, quick side note, guys, I know everybody loves the fun intro, the memes and all that, but YouTube has hit me with so many copyrights recently. They demonetized my channel. The copyright situation is like getting out of control here, so I may have to calm down on that a bit, or else I may lose my channel, which is why I highly recommend that you guys go follow me over on Twitter X, just in case a scenario like that happens. But let's start here with this simple consolidation that Bitcoin is having. And you can see right here, this is basically the last day that we're going to be in this pattern. Now, as I just went back to this right here, this is just a smaller pattern within a larger pattern. So it is possible, to break this to the downside. That is possible. And, most likely you would just be looking for a support on this upward sloping channel. But really all that we're doing, even though it might seem kind of crazy on the shorter time frame, we're just consolidating between this Fibonacci extension. We literally talked about this so many months ago, and the fact that Bitcoin never ever got up up to its 4.236 last cycle is really insane because Bitcoin has always gone above that level. So realistically, what we're doing is really just trying to reclaim the all-time high that we probably should have gotten in the last Bitcoin cycle. But here is the part where it gets crazy. Now, this is assuming that nothing happens crazy within the next 24 hours. But as you can see right here, Bitcoin has put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and unless Bitcoin is planning on dropping $8,000 in the next 24 hours, we are going to put in 7 green candles. Now, why does this matter? I mean, sounds good, right? Bitcoin price is going up. Oh no, time for a pullback. Well, that's the interesting part because we've only ever had, since Bitcoin's inception, or at least since we were recording data back in here around July of 2010, we only had Bitcoin put in 7 weekly candles, 7 monthly candles, sorry guys, one time ever. And that was back here in 2012. And after Bitcoin put in that candle, yes, it did have a red month, okay? But after that, Bitcoin price literally skyrocketed 2,000% in about 215 days. And then it had a massive 80% correction. Now, do I think that that's what's going to happen this time? Not necessarily, but we were entertaining the theory about what if everybody was wrong, right? You have some people calling for the super cycle, some people saying it's just a typical 4-year cycle, some people saying, that we're going to just, that's it, it's going to end and we're going to go into a bear market. Well, what if we have one of those sort of bear bulls inside of a giant bull market? Maybe that is a super cycle, because from that point, even after that crash, right, what ended up happening? Well, Bitcoin then went up another 2,000%, right? So is that going to happen again for Bitcoin? Well, of course, I don't know that for sure, but something that is quite interesting is if you do take that peak and just draw a very simple line right here, which I could just show you guys. All right, so you just basically take this and you just connect it, and look what we've been doing. Ever since we broke back above that area, Bitcoin has essentially held this in all of the previous 2 cycles as support. So this is suggesting that if this was to maintain, obviously this is logarithmic, we can move this around a little bit, but my point is it's just a general uptrend. Even if Bitcoin was to, come all the way back down here, there's a really good chance you'll probably never, ever be able to buy Bitcoin below 30,000 again. And there's honestly just way too many people waiting for that opportunity. Like Stock Money Lizards pointed out, we haven't even hit the halving. And typically you still have a good 52 weeks of solid bullish action. So, if you are a believer of the 4-year cycle, well, then we should minimally have 52 weeks of upside, right? And something that Crypto pointed out, this is insane. So what you notice is during these parabolic trends, right, you notice that you have these giant whale wallets that start to accumulate. And then as you can see right here, it still continues to go up, but they start to kind of chill out a little bit. They start to hodl a little bit, and then eventually they start to sell out. We had the same exact thing happen here. But if we go into what is happening right now, this is going absolutely parabolic. It's not even showing signs of starting to level out. And even once they do start to level out, as far as these whales are concerned, we still tend to have more of that upside for Bitcoin. So the fact that we don't even have these whale wallets beginning to slow down just yet, historically speaking, it is definitely showing us that this time is in fact different, right? Who knows? We may even get the first ever 8 straight months of green for Bitcoin. I mean, we've never done it before, but Bitcoin has obviously been surprising a lot of people lately. And one thing that you can just really go off of is this pi cycle indicator. When we do have these crosses, right? And you can see right here, these are pretty good indications of where we're hitting these tops. You can see right here, that was a very good call when we got a cross on those moving averages. The next top you can see right here, that was a pretty damn call. I mean, it was in one day essentially of the top. And if we look at where we're at right now, we have quite a long time, guys, until this yellow line gets up to this green line. So again, this is not my opinion. These are just the facts in the charts that are showing us that we have much more room to grow. In fact, this is why Natalie Brunell, she was over here talking essentially about why she believes a 6-figure Bitcoin is much closer than a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah, it's been such a blessing to be able to stack at the lower prices, because we are back at these high levels. And this is the first time we've seen a new all-time high before a Bitcoin halving in a cycle. So things could get very interesting, especially because in previous cycles, we would hit a new all-time high about 6 to 12 months after a halving. And with the consistently strong demand for those spot Bitcoin ETFs you mentioned that are wildly popular, I don't see how we don't hit six figures sometime soon, unless we have some massive economic contraction on the macro side. But if we do, guess what they'll have to do? They're going to have to print. And every time they print, they're just the perfect marketing team for why we need Bitcoin.
And we all know this is how it goes. They turn on the money cycle. We discussed, first of all, the global liquidity, right? I mean, even though the US is very important, you still have to consider that not every single country is doing what the US does, right? And, you know, a lot of people, they yell these top signals, right? Like, oh, look at all the memes, right? Well, memes have always been sort of a market is getting overheated type of a thing. But the reality is that as far as the new retail investors are concerned, which are really, let's be honest, the ones that drive the meme markets, they're still not really coming in yet. Yes, you are having some of the normies or whatever you want to call them, people come in. You know, I'm a normie. I mean, I'm not an institution, so I guess I'm lumped in that category as well. But, you know, the degenerates that have already been in the space, they're the ones that are buying right now. But the amount of capital that is about to come in versus the diminishing supply on the exchanges is where it's going to get crazy, right? Because we've never seen this much capital with such diminishing supply. And we'll get back to that in just a bit. But, you know, oh, Dua Lipa, she's posing with the Bitcoin standard. Well, I don't know necessarily if this is a top signal because, you know, first of all, she's posing with a Bitcoin book. She's not like being paid by Ethereum Max or that like Paris Hilton scandal a while ago, right? And I think that what's happening is a lot of people are starting to wake up. And as we had spoke about previously, the craziest thing is that a lot of this big money, even with all the run up, the literal double in price from 35 to 70, and we still don't have that big money yet. And because a lot of them, they need to see that performance. They need to see, you know, basically these assets perform before they can have their customers or their clients buying it. But as Larry Lepard points out, at some point, virtually all asset managers are going to have no choice but to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon.
Look, the fact of the matter is that investment managers are charged with delivering performance. Okay, that's what we, people who manage money, get paid to do. My clients say, how much money have you made for me? How much performance have you generated? You know more about this stuff than I do. I'm giving you my money. Please give me a high rate of return. And here you are, you've got this asset that, you know, has outperformed every other asset in the history of the financial markets. I mean, on a 15-year, 10-year, 5-year basis, whatever you want to look at. I mean, you can find some short periods of time where obviously it did not outperform or it had a big correction. But in general, if you take a long enough window on it, it's been the top performing financial asset kind of ever. And so, you know, one would have to say or ask any manager of assets, you know, how can you ignore this thing? I mean, you know, look at these numbers, and what is going to change that's going to make these numbers. What's going to make this trend stop? I mean, I always say that, you know, what you want to do with a business, you want to invest in businesses where dogs are eating the food and there are more dogs showing up all the time. And Bitcoin's a classic example of that, right? The dogs are eating the food and there are more dogs coming to the party. And unless that changes, it's like, you know, why aren't you long this thing? I mean, now, obviously, the weighting is an issue. You know, and if you're 80 years old and you can't suffer a drawdown, you know, you can't go 100% into it. But, you know, there's nobody who can't have 1 or 2% in it. If it goes to zero, they won't be affected. And if it does a 10 bagger or 100 bagger, it'll make a meaningful impact on their portfolio. So, you know, to me, it's a no-brainer. And this is going to happen. The other thing that's going to happen, Sam, I think, is MicroStrategy is going to get big enough that it's going to get put into the S&P 500. So then you'll just have all these, I mean, as you know, the big trend away from active management to passively managed money has been an enormous trend over the past, you know, 10, 15 years. That's just going to continue. And, you know, as that, think, right? And people are going to have to buy MicroStrategy.
Flows that it's like a flywheel with these funds and the ETFs with MicroStrategy getting included. And then it just all leads to demand for Bitcoin when it comes down to it, like funnel it down.
It's very much a positive feedback loop in the same way that inflation is a negative feedback loop for the dollar. You know, as the dollar loses its value and ability to buy stuff, people are like, why the heck am I holding this thing? You know, why do I want these bonds? Why do I want this cash? It's a melting ice cube. I just don't want to have it.
Even Lary Fink himself was surprised at how well the Bitcoin ETF performed. He's incredibly bullish, and it was actually officially the best ETF launch of all time.
I'm very bullish on the long-term viability of Bitcoin.
I was going to say, did that surprise you?
That surprised me how much that's gone up. We're creating now a market that has more liquidity, more transparency. I'm pleasantly surprised, and I would never have predicted it before we filed it, that we were going to see this type of retail demand.
So you thought you'd do good, but not this good.
Yes. IBIT is the fastest growing ETF in the history of ETFs.
And just putting that into perspective, when we had gold launch, okay, that took the gold price up a little over 7x. Now, obviously, it took a lot longer. The market cap at the time was a lot higher, which kind of, in a way, makes it seem that Bitcoin could see an even more exponential growth. You know, all of these numbers, all of these price targets, they all seem crazy until they're not. It was insane to have a new all-time high before a halving. I didn't even think it was going to happen. I'm not going to lie. Like, I did not think it was possible, but it happened anyway. So when you start talking about these big numbers, you have to understand that, as I was saying previously, we didn't have this amount of potential capital coming in, these trillions and trillions of dollar asset managers who are looking to even just allocate maybe 1 to 5%. And while you're having this wall of money coming in, look at what we have over here. Bitcoin liquidity inventory, self side, for example, has reached an all-time low. Sell side is what I meant to say. So, you know, you're having huge demand coming in, halving coming up, sell side liquidity basically at an all-time low. This is a cocktail for a massive, massive shoot to the upside, you know? And obviously not trying to get overly bullish. I mean, we had plenty of time to be cautiously optimistic. But as Vivek points out, you know, looking at these 500 days that you tend to get, okay, leading after these cycles, this doesn't make a situation like I spoke about where we have this crazy move, we have that insane pullback, right? Everybody thinks it's over. See, I told you that the cycle was going to end early, only to shock everyone with one final leg up to around $350,000. And the reality is that there is just so much money out there. I think people underestimate how much money there actually is in the world. There's infinite money. You have countries printing more money, okay? You have all of these asset managers. You have the bonds. You obviously have the stock market. You have real estate, right? There are so many places. And you know what? When these people are sitting in these standard, you know, bonds or treasuries, and they're either producing virtually nothing or not producing at all, what do you think they're going to do when they have an opportunity to move into something like Bitcoin? And that's where Peter Dunworth came out, and this is probably one of the most astronomical price projections at this point. I think you're just supposed to take this with a grain of salt. He's talking about a $7 billion Bitcoin. $7 billion. Like, think about that. So when people are worried about buying too high right now, crazy to think about that. But is there any reality behind that, or is it just moon boy math? Well, he's an OG. He's been in the space. I consider him to be a somewhat level-headed individual, and this is what he had to say.
There's a really short answer to this, and I can give you an extended one. The too long didn't read of this is that the world has a collateral problem at this point in time, and Bitcoin is the best form of collateral ever invented. My expectation is not only is it the best form of collateral, it is the best form of money ever invented. And we have those three functions of money being store of value, mean of exchange, and unit of account. The fact is that Bitcoin is the first time in history that you have one asset that is the dominant, the apex predator of all of those three functions of money at the same time, with the ability to be collateral. Now, all of a sudden, that completely redefines the space as far as how much wealth can be absorbed by Bitcoin. And this is where probably a better way of thinking about it is, you know, what our friend Jeff Booth talks about, where he says it's impossible to value the future system from within the existing one. And this is where what I try to do is put a valuation framework around Bitcoin to highlight how absurd it's going to get very quickly. And the thinking and the rationale on, say, a $7 billion Bitcoin is quite simply, once people understand what this is, and we have the bulk of it tied up in collateral, and we don't have the need to sell it because we've got a functioning credit market on top of Bitcoin, then Bitcoin will facilitate the entire global trade because it's the best form of money ever invented. Now, I don't think it's important to do that in order for it to go 50 or 100x up from here, but if it's facilitating daily global trade, we have $6.3 trillion of daily global trade, and we only have 900 Bitcoin minted on the day. That gives us a $7 billion Bitcoin. If you divide 6.3 trillion by whatever's minted on the day, which is going to have to facilitate whatever the daily global trade is, then we get to a ridiculous number of $7 billion. And then this is where the numbers get exponential very quickly, is that, that is assuming that there's a static GDP number. So assuming no human growth moving forward. And then in addition to that, you have a halving period every 4 years where we're just about to go into one on the 20th of April, where 900 Bitcoins minted per day are going to drop to 450. And all of a sudden, it's not going to be a $7 billion Bitcoin. It's going to be a $14 billion Bitcoin, by a fair market value assumption of what I've laid out. And, don't get caught up in the number. No one cares about the number, but get caught up in the thinking about, well, if what I'm telling you is correct when it comes to, why it's the best asset, why it's the best form of money, why it's the best form of collateral, it only makes sense in a logical progression to think that these things will play out. Now, what I don't know is how long it's going to take to play out, but I'm pretty certain as long as Bitcoin keeps functioning, then that trajectory is certain. It's just a matter of when it's going to approach those numbers.
And this is where things get tricky, because obviously we know, anyone who's been watching this channel, we've seen Bitcoin grow. We understand that Bitcoin is the apex predator. We understand the potential of Bitcoin, but a lot of people are going to look at the price of Bitcoin and they're going to say $70,000 is too expensive. I missed the boat. That's what they're going to say. That's exactly what they said at 10,000 and 20,000 and 45,000. And now they're saying it again at 70,000. And they're going to say it again at 200. And they're going to say it again at $1 million, which, to be honest, $1 million for a normal person is kind of a lot of money. But what if it goes to 7 billion, like Peter Dunwith was talking about? So this is why when you have a look at what the altcoins are doing, this is the total market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So these are just coins that are not Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you can see that they've just entered into the green Gaussian. And when they tend to get into this area, they tend to run for quite some time. In fact, if you look at the money flow, just kind of starting out right here, that's the equivalent of buying altcoins around $115 billion market cap, where they did a 7x from that point. So this is where you start to get into those crazy altcoin opportunities. Now, there are a lot of people that, unfortunately, they hold too long, they chase altcoins, they get married to them, and what ends up happening is they have less Bitcoin today than they did yesterday, right? It happens to the best of us, guys. Look, I am just as guilty of that. I used to trade, I used to hold, and I just would never sell, or, I wouldn't just cut my losses, right? And it's hard, it's tough to learn these, but if you can get into them early before everyone is paying attention, that's when you have the most potential for the upside gains. I mean, yes, you could technically ride a wave, like right now, that dog with hat, right? That's pretty popular. A lot of people are buying it. It'll probably keep going up. Dogecoin is the OG of meme coins. It'll probably keep going up, but not all of them will. But this does suggest that we are about to enter into that season. And I've been talking about a lot of altcoins on Twitter. If you're not following me, one project that we actually have been looking at is this on-chain dynamics. So what's interesting is it reminds me a lot of almost like something like a Uniswap, where you can do all of these different features. Actually, they have a beta if you want to sign up for it right here. But some of the features that they're going to have, and this is all decentralized, they have, these security features like token tax protection, private nodes, multi-wallet support. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because if we have a look at this chart, guys, this token has basically been trading since September 7th of last year. It's basically down at the exact same price that it's been launching, and you haven't seen any major pump or really any major dump. It's basically just been sideways. So this is showing me that it could potentially, not financial advice, be a good opportunity, especially at only a $2 million market cap. I mean, these are literally the kind of coins where, basically you can just put like less than 1% or 0.5% of your portfolio into these things. And these are where you hear people turning like $500 into like $300,000, $400,000, right? Because these things can get absolutely crazy, especially considering how early, we are in this altcoin cycle. And another one that I've been looking at for people who are into like GameFi and stuff like that. So this had an initial market cap of only $860,000, literally launched about 20 5-ish hours ago, and currently it's already listed on Uniswap, Beam, and MEXC and Gate.io. And as you guys can see right here, I mean, yeah, the price, I don't really go off of this wick, Castle of Blackwater, by the way. This is a game which you guys could check out if you want to come over to the website. They actually already have, you can download it right now, you can play it right now. But I mean, this basically just launched. I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about it. This says that it has a $3.57 million market cap, but even fully diluted is only at 83, which seems high, but it's not really that high in the sense of a bull run. So, I mean, this coin literally just launched. I mean, are we going to, are we putting in higher highs and higher lows, or is this going to end up, coming down here? I don't really know yet. It's pretty impossible to do TA on a coin that just came out. But regardless of looking at the price right now, looking at this market cap, I definitely think this could also be another really interesting play. So, not trying to shill coins. These are just some that I'm looking at. Have I been in the meme coin market? Yes, but I feel very uncomfortable talking about it because realistically with meme coins, if you get into 10 of them, 9 of them are going to rug. Like, that's just how it goes. So I don't want to give like signals. One of them that I got into, I'll just let you guys know, it's done a 3X. It was called Motai or something. Literally no idea what this coin does. Just somebody had mentioned it to me. It's Moutai. It's on Solana. Looks like it's been doing pretty well, but I didn't really want to shill it because, again, it's up 3x, but who knows, meme coins could do like 1,000x. So I don't know. That's another one that you guys could check out. But I just want to kind of end on there and also let you guys know that we have about 70 spots left on the meta signals if you want to get that, obviously before the price increases. So ultimately, that's it for me, guys. Not trying to shill altcoins, but I do get it. I do buy altcoins, and I'm not a fan of the meme coins. They can be lucrative, whenever. See, the thing is when people talk about their meme coins, you only see when they talk about when they do really well. What you don't see is all the money that they're really losing. Like, unless you're an insider or something or you're part of the launch, you're really just gambling and guessing. So while it is fun and I do support free markets, I just would like to just say, please exercise caution when trading meme coins. They're memes. They have no utility. They're going to go to zero eventually at some point. So just be very, very careful about that, guys. So ultimately, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. I love you. You're awesome. At the end of the day, stack Bitcoin. You know the drill. If you guys want some great tutorials on trading and you want to use decentralized, I started actually using Apex with Binance Chain, and the fees are like $2 for withdrawals. At some point, they were getting up to like 100 on Ethereum. So just some other issues that Ethereum is having. But that's it for me, guys. I love you. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.